Hello, this is Dustin back with Dustin's Dollars. Today I am going to be talking again about Knightscope, Kscp stock, and today I'm going to be talking about Knightscope's hiring. That is one of the things that I like to track about the companies that I invest in and that I'm long, and I will get into that in just a moment. Let me remind you, I am not a financial advisor or a financial professional of any sort. All opinions that I express in this video are mine and do not represent those of any company or any other individual. I currently have a long position in Knightscope. So take that for what it's worth. And basically this video should be for your entertainment only because I could be wrong about everything that I say in this video. You need to do your own research before making any investment decisions. So that being said, hello. And like I say, I'm going to be talking about Knightscope's job listings and presumably some of those that have been actually filled and turned into employees by this point. I'm going to talk about their employee count over time, how that has changed, and we'll do a little bit of speculation on what that means for the company. Like I say, I do like to track this for the companies that I invest in because you can get a sense for where are they growing, and obviously sort of how quickly they're growing. You do get some reported numbers of employee count over time, and I'll go through that in a moment. But you can see when they have a lot of these jobs open to sort of front run those reported numbers to see when they are hiring and to see specifically what they're hiring. It gives you a little bit of insight into what challenges the company is facing. And I think that's sometimes, it can give you a lot of insight, especially for startups, right? If you're looking at a huge company where, maybe at a given year, they're only growing 10%. In terms of employee count, like you really don't get that much insight on the company. But for a small company like Knightscope, where they're in double digit numbers of employees, not thousands or tens of thousands, they're at double digits. So I think you can actually get a fair bit of insight into what's how the company is developing. So that being said, let's get right into it. And this is their list of their open jobs right now. They have these, and they do sort of split these out by department. That's how they're sorted. And so they have, fleet operations specialist, and they have some engineering here, and then some sales, some director of client development positions that are sort of regional here. And then some client experience and some accounting positions open. So, and that's actually to be expected. They're going to have some accounting positions now that they're a public company. They probably have a lot more to do. In terms of what they need to prepare. So that makes sense. Sales totally makes sense right now. At least that sounds good to me, right? That they're trying to hire salespeople. That means they're looking to grow revenues. And then of course I assume they're always going to be hiring at least some amount of engineers to improve the robots, improve the products. That's key for a startup. They're clearly still developing their product offerings right now, and they've even said they're even iterating on what they have. Right, they're talking about that fifth generation of the K5. They're talking about the K1 Nano, I think they called it. I guess the smaller version of the K1 that they're trying to develop, and they of course they need engineers for all those, and then of course they need operations, right, for actually monitoring all those robots that are operating autonomously. They do break, they do, I'm sure, malfunction. This is a startup, this is a new product, relatively new, where they're going to have some bugs as they update things and release, and that's gonna that's what those operations folks are going to do. But I did want to look at and present to you how has their employee count changed over time. And I got all these numbers. By the way, I know last time I had a spreadsheet. Folks actually had joined the stream and asked me to post a link to it in where they could access it. I will put a link in the description. I think I forgot to do it when I set up this stream. I will do it shortly after the stream, as soon as YouTube lets me edit it. I'll put a link to this spreadsheet so that you can take a look at it if you want. There's not a whole lot here, but I will do it anyways. So this is from their reported numbers that I could find, and they report these numbers at least once a year in their annual reports and their 1Ks. They also reported their full-time employee counts in most, maybe all of their offering circulars when they were raising funds in the past through Regulation A or whatever it is. I'm certainly not an expert in those things, and I could be wrong, but every time they sort of filed those and were raising money, they did have an employee count, full-time employee count, that is. And some of them, they actually even called out that they had a certain amount of part-time folks, and I think one called out like either a consultant or an intern or something that was not even full-time or a part-time employee. I found that a little funny, but this is the reported numbers over time, and it's actually a pretty interesting graph. And I had known this, but forgotten it. That they actually lost a lot of people, and presumably they laid some folks off. I know that this was around about the time, when we saw growth sort of stagnate at the company, and in 2019, and it was also, if you read those past filings, when they got in a cash crunch, they were very, very short on liquidity. And if anybody was curious, I could make a video about it at some point. Some of the stuff that they at least that we know of that they did. They took on some debt, some pretty nasty stuff, and I think they've got all of that paid off. They did that, I think, in earlier 2021, well before even the most recent offering, where they went public, the public listing. But I think I can only assume that sharp drop in employee count in 2019 was because they laid off a bunch of people to conserve cash, and they're building back up the company since mid 2020, as you can see here on the graph, and that I think that bodes well for the company, that they took the actions they needed to when they actually got in that cash crunch, and now that they are confident enough to build back up over time, right? I think most folks are a little conservative after they go through a situation like that, but they're clearly growing. So I take that as at least a good sign. You could maybe take the opposite side, say they mismanaged it before, maybe they mismanage it now. And that's, again, up to your own opinion, right? It kind of depends on how much faith you have in management. Just as an example, I was going to say this is like their most recent count, and it is actually 54 full-time employees. That might be too small for you to read, but this is in their most recent offering circular. We have, as of the date of this offering circular, we have 54 full-time employees. And this is actually quite recent, because this was January 21st. So that's almost just about a month ago. So that's a pretty recent employee count for the company. So we know that right now that's about how large the company is. And we saw their current job openings that they have posted. Now, I've been following the company, and I started following it even more closely in terms of actually the postings, the job postings myself, about middle of last year. And I started this so what I did is about every other week, I would go and copy and archive for myself what open job listings they had on their website. So I did that, and I saved it, and then I sort of put that in the spreadsheet here to the best of my abilities, and try to record all the job openings that I've seen since that point, since July 7th. I put the first date that I saw it here in this column. I put the first date that I didn't see it, and from that, it might mean that they filled it, or it might mean that they just decided they weren't getting the candidates they wanted. They're not going to fill that position. They're going to use the resources some other way. We don't know. We can't know one way or the other. But this is what I have here in terms of data that I've actually collected. And this might be too small for you to read, and that's why, again, I'll share the spreadsheet after I'm done with the stream. I'll put a link in the description so that you can take a look for yourself. But you can see that they were, when I first checked this is everything that was on the page, right? And I have this here for July 7th of last year. And so they were hiring both salespeople and engineers, which, again, shouldn't be much of a surprise. That's actually what they're still hiring now. But these were all mostly software engineers. So I thought that was interesting. And this is actually, they do break out general software engineering, the Knightscope Operations Center engineers, and the actual robot, the ASR, or the autonomous security robot software. So I thought that was interesting that they split out that way. And so we get a little bit of insight into what area of the company are these engineers going to go into. But you can see that they have had a number of those. And then I saw that some of these actually got filled, they were removed. I can only speculate that they got filled. I don't know for sure, but some of these look like they got filled last year. And so that was good to see, that they were actually hiring some of these engineers, and, and then some of the salespeople as well. You don't really know, because these kind of all were listed at the same time, and then that's not in sales. Why is that classified in sales? product security and senior security engineer. That might have been an error on my part. I apologize if that's the case. Yeah, I think I had to have gotten something wrong there. That can't be right. But anyways, they have filled or taken down a number of these and positions. And since we do see that growth, I showed you in the graph before, the growth in the employee count, I have to at least assume that some of these were getting filled. Presumably, many of them, right? If you see from mid last year, this will be the last year. You can see we do have a data point here and here. And from the beginning of the year, they certainly hired some folks. What's that? If I look at the actual data here from the end of 2020, they had 45 at in January, they had 54. So they filled 9 net hires were 9 folks over that time frame. So that gives me some faith that they probably filled most of these positions that were posted and then later taken off. And I took the same data here and put it, filtered out the ones that haven't actually been removed. Although I'll also make one comment there that I think some of these probably will stay on there because that's kind of it's a position they are hiring for multiple folks, and probably they have sort of incremental needs, right? I can imagine full stack engineers, robotic software engineers. These are people they're probably always going to need more. They're probably going to grow as the company grows. These teams will get larger and larger. And this is commonplace for companies to leave these open, let folks apply, and if the right candidate happened to come along, they would hire somebody. But unless that happens, they're not in active need to hire somebody. And that's sort of my speculation as to why you've seen some of these job postings that got added in July of last year and haven't been filled. I can't imagine that in the Bay Area they can't find full stack software engineer. Probably they have already found some, and they have this open just in case they happen to get a rock star candidate they really want, to have that open for them to apply there. So that's again pure speculation on my part, but I've seen it at other companies. Now these are the positions that did get listed and then later were taken off the page. And so again, I would speculate that some of these did actually get filled. And you can, take a look at these yourself and draw your own conclusions. I speculate, there were a couple of things that, again, speculation I thought were notable here. One is that, and I think I already mentioned this, that in October of last year, it looks like they got some sales folks. Again, I think these were misclassified, either on my part or on the company's part. I'm not sure. Probably my part again. I think I probably made that mistake. So apologize for that. But they are already hiring some salespeople that have been hired since they've been hired after the most recent reported numbers that we've seen. So that might give us even better, gives me some faith that their sales numbers are going to be even better. And hi, NASCAR All Out asks, why do you think Kscp was such a hot IPO? Well, I'm gonna veering off. Let me get to your question in just a minute. I'm gonna finish because I was almost done with what I was had prepared material, and then I will answer your question with my opinion. So just a couple other things. I did think that in their hirings in December of 2021, they hired a senior robotics engineer and a robotics engineering manager. So that kind of tells me they are building out this team of robotics engineers. I think that's obviously a good thing for the company. That's what you want. And the fact that they needed to hire a manager tells me that this is getting large enough to be a serious operation. And another one that was interesting is they've hired some operations folks, and they also they are hiring a supervisor for that, so that they that's probably building into a large enough team that it's a well-oiled machine. They need somebody to help they are hiring somebody to manage it so they can be a well-oiled machine. And I sort of figured that's a good problem for the company to have, which is we have enough robots deployed that our operations, we really need somebody to help manage all the folks that are just monitoring the robots. And arguing devil's advocate, the bearish take on that would be, well, their robots suck. They're having so many problems. They have to hire so many people. Do they need a full team monitoring them? I mean, I don't think that's the case. I think this is, a good problem for the company to have, because those sorts of things are going to, grow. No matter how good your robots are, these are physical machines. They're going to fail over time. And, those problems are going to grow with the number of robots that are deployed. And they are obviously gearing up to have more and more robots deployed, right? That's the bullish take on it. So that is what I had prepared material for today. Now, to your question, NASCAR All Out, I'll repeat it, asks, why do you think Kscp was such a hot IPO? And I assume when you say a hot IPO, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, I assume that you mean, why did it go up like this really quickly the first couple of days, and then, later on it dropped back down? But why did that happen? I speculate that it was largely driven by sort of three things. Number one, the story for the company is great, right? It's robotics, it's AI, it's in a market that's obviously sort of untapped right now, right? Security robots. We don't have security robots out there. We have a bunch of security guards that are humans, and it's pretty easy to see how a robot, that works properly could do large parts of that job, right? That it's a pretty easy story to see that. The fact that they've been in business for, I don't know, 8 years or so, and that they have a certain number of robots already deployed, and they've had them deployed for multiple years, that was also a part of that story that sort of gives you the confidence that, like, yeah, these robots work, and there's a huge market out there. We see, a decade or more of potential growth for this company, right? So I think that sort of just initial gut reaction of everybody on this IPO when they heard about the company was like, oh, hey, this is pretty, this is a cool company. It's going to go places. And the second thing as to why did it go crazy, I think this was really a function of the low float, right? There was very, very few shares available. And I think that was exacerbated by the fact that this was a lot of retail, right, who held the shares. The insiders haven't sold anything. And in order to participate in this offering or to have had shares in the past, you had to have bought into one of their Regulation A rounds, or this particular round. And it was a lot of retail, right? They only raised $22 million in this listing. In the past, over the whole course of their company, they've raised $100 million. None of the big boys, bought into that. And I don't know exactly, right? It's a bit above my pay grade in terms of like, how do normal IPOs work, which, are like some of the market makers buying up blocks of shares so that they have them available on the opening day. But like, they started listing here, and they didn't seem like they would have had that many shares bought by some of these people who facilitate market transactions. So I think there was just a shortage of shares to go around, and I think that started things going up. And then you just had a bit of momentum and day traders that really, pushed it, that coupled with this great story for the company, just push the stock up. I think another factor that really played into that, in my opinion, was I don't know how many people actually read their filings. And I'll be honest, I don't know how many people just looked at Yahoo Finance or some other sources that reported what their market cap was, reported what the shares, with the shares outstanding were, and none of those sources are right? I do the calculation myself. I think their fully diluted market cap is around, I don't have the number off the top of my head. It's like 56 million shares, 57 million shares, somewhere around that vicinity. If everything was converted into the Class A's. But you saw other places listing that number at like 4 million shares or 2 million shares, because they offered 4 million shares in their initial in the public listing, the raise at that point. And so, and they didn't even sell all 4 million, right? They only sold and therefore issued like 2.2 million of those shares. So you had places that made it look like the market cap of this company at $10 a share at 4 million shares was $40 million. And even some other places, even Yahoo Finance right now, right? They still only list this. Let's go to Kscp. You look at this. They still only show the market cap as if there are, right? So it's at 672. And they say that that's a, $100 million company, $95 million company. I mean, that's much higher. If I pull it out and I just real quickly do the math, if there was 56 million shares and it's, 672, they're like a 376 million market cap company, right? So NASCAR All Out says, I did notice Kscp was a warrantless, low float IPO. These tend to perform much better in the first few trading days than IPOs that include warrants. Yeah. And I would even say there were probably some people who bought in some of the older rounds, bought because I think until this, trying to recall, I think until this most recent round, the most recent round that was just in, November, December, January, where they were actually selling the Class A shares, the ones that could be traded. They had some prior rounds where they sold preferred shares to the public. They had some older rounds where they sold older rounds before I invested. I invested in, I think, 2018 or something. And at that time, they were selling the preferred S series shares. And there were prior ones, I think, that sold preferred M's to the public. And, there's some older ones even before that. But, like, there are actually a lot of retail people who held or who bought the S series preferred shares. And I read some stories online, because I've been following the stock, about how you in order, so I'll say I'm still holding my preferred shares. There's reasons for that. I can get into it if anybody cared ever, but I'm still holding mine. Haven't converted to Class A's at all. But you had to go through a process to convert. This is done through computer share, and I've read stories online where some folks didn't, like it took them time and it was a pain for them to convert, I guess. And some people actually didn't even get their shares listed in computer share. I think folks who invested through, it wasn't where I invested through, it was like through Seed Invest, I think. One of the places where at some point along the way, some folks bought in there and didn't have their shares on when the actual IPO happened, when the listing happened. And so I think that was another thing that factored into even people who might have wanted to convert and sell on IPO day at $10 or the day after at 27, didn't have their shares in an account where they could do that. They were still tied up as these S series shares. All right, so NASCAR All Out says, digital offering was the underwriter, which I had no experience with. The hottest underwriter over the past few years has been Boosted Securities. Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I don't have any experience, but yeah, I'm not sure. And I know that this has been a, Knightscope themselves is in their fundraising over the years has been, unconventional, right? They've funded almost entirely through, not entirely, but quite a lot through this Regulation A thing, which I think is fairly new legislation. I don't think that many companies have done it. And you call it an IPO, and I think it wasn't this was their initial public offering, the initial public listing for sure, but it wasn't even the traditional IPO process. And I don't know that much about it. I don't usually invest in private companies at all. This is the first one that I ever had done when I bought into it, and I have no real appetite to do any others at the moment. So I don't have any experience, but yeah, it's that's sort of my take on it, right? I just think a lot of people piled in, and there weren't that many shares to go around, and then that sort of just drove momentum up to where it peaked out. Yeah. So that was all I had to cover today. You have anything else? If not, I'm gonna hop off and I will say goodbye. I don't know if there's a delay on the chat, so if you say something else and I totally miss it, I'm sorry, because it hasn't shown up yet. I've heard that before, that there's actually a delay on the chat messages for people who are streaming. I'm a little bit new to the YouTube thing, so particularly to streaming. Yeah, but I don't see anything else. So hey, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. It's fun when we get some back and forth here. I'd love it to have more people on here. Maybe that would happen if I could do set times for my streams, but so far I haven't been able to actually carve that out with my family obligations as well. So all right, well, thanks for tuning in. Thank you for everybody else who will watch this after the fact, and I appreciate it. Have a good day.